Good day to all students gathered today for a lesson on understanding academic writing vis-à-vis creative writing. As you can see in the very first slide, we have used three directing words: distinguishing, defining, understanding. Distinguishing, in other words, to actually go into the very nature of academic writing in comparison with other form of writing. Defining, as is self-explanatory, to go into the characteristics of academic writing. And then, of course, your participation when you try and absorb the distinguishing and the defining of it. Before we enter into the act of distinguishing and defining, let us first understand something about the necessity of writing itself. The question is, why pursue writing? I am now referring to the famous poet T.S. Eliot's poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, to take you into the heart of the question, why pursue writing? Eliot is saying, in terms of his protagonist, if one settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl, turning toward the window, should say, that is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all. What are these lines implicating? Here is someone who is complaining. The character in Eliot's poem, unnamed, every man, every woman, is complaining. Of what? That is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all. Here is the key word. That is not what I meant at all. In other words, there has been a conversation, obviously between more than one person. But the people taking part in that conversation cannot understand each other. The listener is telling the speaker, but that's not what I meant at all. In other words, whatever the speaker may have said has not reached the listener. You are the students. I am the one who is disseminating the lesson. If I cannot reach you or you cannot reach me, then we are in a zone of lack of communication. Coming back, communication is integral to civilized existence. Breakdown in communication, as indicated in the quotation, signifies stagnation in culture. Conceive, students, of a society where there are people who are making a lot of noises, like the proverbial Tower of Babel, and yet nobody is understanding the other person. What is the point of the sounds and the noises? If they do not mean anything, if they do not drive towards any meaning, how can any activity in civilization, be it social, political, economic, or any other activity, how can any activity be undertaken or reach any point of success if there is only noise and no communication? Writing is recorded form of communication. Communication then actually implies not only making sounds or noises, but to make meaningful reaching out between the speaker and the listener. And since oral speech, although it is the basis of all communication, as you have a pyramid, it is the base of the pyramid. But the foundation has to be strong. And it is here that the recorded form of communication in the form of writing becomes important. Educated, informed minds form foundation of civilization and need to engage in serious, unbiased, critical knowing. If students, you have appreciated point 1, which is the importance of communicating, in other words, reaching out meaningfully to each other, so that activities of civilization can take a course towards fulfillment, then you will appreciate that recording of that communication or writing is also very important. After all, ideas are dynamic. You have one set of ideas today and another tomorrow. So if the ideas have to be preserved, to be developed, recording is important. Thereafter comes the question of the onward progress of civilization. Educated, informed minds will debate, will discuss, will explore and inquire. And more ideas will have to come in. These ideas will have to be communicated, and as communication becomes more and more stable and settled, writing will also have to develop. The importance of writing as a means of communication, as one of the pillar stones of human civilization, is therefore unquestionable. The aim in any flourishing civilization is to set up a cultural space opposite to the one anxiously portrayed by T.S. Eliot, where the two people, speaker and listener, do not understand each other. So, repeating just once more for your understanding, communication is the cornerstone of civilization. Communication generates ideas. Ideas lead to development of knowing and civilization, and writing is the recording of the means of communication. We are now about to distinguish forms of writing. Here you can see in the slide two visuals. If you look closely, both represent forms of writing, but they are not replique of each other. That is to say, the first visual and the second visual are not exactly the same. The first visual has a little bit of scattered impression about it. And largely you will see manuscripts. I hope you understand what manuscripts are. The actual scribing your own handwriting. Scribing or writing by your own hand. The second one seems more organized. We have a writer who is referring to something and making notes, a cup of coffee or something on the side. Let us now look into what these forms of writing, which looks different, what is the so-called definition of the two visuals. The first one, looking scattered, in fact, it has got a pen, a fountain pen, as well as a feather, a quill, Q-U-I-L-L. Quill is the ancient form of a pen where you could dip the feathers, tip in ink and start writing. So the visuals are representing something which is very individualistic, personal. Creative writing is essentially communication of experience. It has been put in bold, experience, in terms of the reality of emotions. The language of creativity is imagistic and may violate standard grammar. Let me go to the other definition, then I will come and show you the contrast and comparisons. The other visual, showing a more organized form of the act of writing, not pen, quill scattered here, but a person with a very neat document entering certain reference work in another document. Academic writing is objective rather than subjective. It is not opposed to persuasion, but its persuasiveness is based on factual logic, not emotional logic. Here we have two definitions, but let us go to and from the first visual to the second visual and its write-up, and see if we can arrive at a definition that satisfies your understanding. Creative writing is essentially communication of experience in terms of the reality of emotions. Please pay a good attention here. It is not being suggested that creative writing is unreal. It is important for you to understand creative writing because then only you can distinguish academic writing in its own identity, right? So let us go back. Creative writing is essentially communication of experience in terms of the reality of emotion. So creative writing is not unreal. It is a special kind of reality. What is this reality that we are talking about? As man reacts, feelings are generated when he goes through experience. It is the feelings which are very real. That is translated into images, word pictures, which of course is done in terms of language. So the determinative factor is the felt emotion, which is very real. but it is subjective. That is the very, very defining word. Take an example. Two people walking down a road. They do not see a banana skin lying on the pavement. Both slip. One stands up embarrassed, looking all over. Has anybody seen me? The other gets up very annoyed and says, such careless habits. Has anybody seen me? Such careless habits. Here you have, indeed, two expressions, very real. Both have slipped on the banana skins. Yet, the expression is so different. One is embarrassed, the other is annoyed. Consequently, the languages are different. Has anybody seen me? Oh, how careless, or something similar. This is the reality of emotion, and it differs or is unique. Let us say unique from person to person and is highly subjective. Experience, in a way, is the same, but not how it is perceived. Naturally, according to the distinctiveness of reaction, images are formed, language is framed, and you have a poem, maybe, a story, maybe, a novel, maybe, a drama, maybe. Creative writing. Come back to the other visual. It is this element of subjectivity that we have to dwell on. Broadly speaking, academic writing is not subjective in the sense that creative writing is subjective. In case that creates a confusion among you, that what is the teacher saying? It is not subjective in the way creative writing is subjective. Yes. What is missing here or not included in the subjective element in academic writing is the fact that here there is no scope for feelings to dictate the expression. Then why am I saying that academic writing is subjective but not like creative writing? Where is the subjectivity of the academic writing? Well, the subjectivity here lies that one academic writer will give certain facts which satisfies his logical understanding, whereas another academic writer will give definite facts also from his logical understanding. Here there is no scope that academic writing is based on any liking or disliking. I hate the situation of somebody dropping a banana skin, so I get angry and I express. I'm just a little ashamed that I didn't see the banana skin, and again, from my feelings I express. No, that is not the domain of academic writing. Academic writing will not give any scope to your bias. It will only give scope to logic. So, in a way, though there is a question of academic writing differing from writer to writer. At one point, in that sense, it is subjective, but the subjectivity is actually more objective because it is not based on the reality of emotion. Definitions are all very good, students, but definitions, in a way, are theoretical structures, kind of scaffolding. You know what is scaffolding? Like when a house, for instance, is being repaired or painted or some such thing is happening, you may see on the roads of your own town or city that they put up frameworks, metallic or bamboo frameworks, to enable the workmen to go and do their jobs. That is called scaffolding. But the scaffolding is only the structure. Like definition, the structure. The scaffolding is not the building which is being repaired. So, we have gone into definitions. We have to see in terms of examples, especially creative writing, so that academic writing assumes its identity convincingly at the end of the lesson. Short little poem by Joyce Kilmer. Before I read this short poem, I repeat the definition of creative writing. Emphasis is on the reality of emotions. Joyce Kilmer writes, I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's sweet flowing breast, a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray, a tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. Joyce Kilmer's poem shows you that she is looking at the tree in a very emotional way. It is an emotional perception. The botanical facts are being realized in terms of individualistic ideas, true to the self, but not necessarily true to the reality of scientific knowing. In academic writing, this pronounced subjectivity, the creation of a closed emotional universe, is not the intent. We now look closely at academic writing. Academic writing is formal style of writing used in higher education and research, and it is characterized by objectivity. I think by now you have understood that the subjectivity of the reality of emotions is not the purview of academic writing. Academic writing's subjective impression is only restricted to perspectives being adopted according to logic by different writers. Perspectives being adopted according to the logic of different writers. So, we can safely say that it is objective. Precise, yes, you cannot go on repeating, going in a roundabout fashion. It has to be direct, to the point, and with very, very masculine, sharp expressions. Reliance on evidence, especially if you are doing a research-based writing, it has to have supporting evidence. Academic writing is distinctive from creative writing. Creative writing has once again been characterized as perceptual, imaginative expression, and persuasive writing, journalism, speeches. Academic writing definitely tries to convince the reader of the findings, but it does so with the aid of logic, not with the aid of high sounding words like persuasive writing, journalism, oratorial speeches. Here is a short road map which you may follow if you are attempting research based academic writing. Knowing the scope, you must be very clear on what exactly are you trying to write or focus. 2. Deciding upon the perspective. Yes, your set of logic which you wish to apply to the issue that you are trying to address. Deciding upon the perspective. How will you achieve this? Well, you have read something, some question has been raised in your mind, you find out more about the question, you take an act of research, you go to the library, you access the internet and you find out about more, and then you decide whether it is worth pursuing or other people have already discussed that issue. So, deciding upon the perspective. Outlining of the plan. Once you are settled that yes, these aspects have been addressed, but this aspect of that issue has not been addressed. So, you make a plan on that untouched or untapped area. And then, of course, you write. Then you review and edit. A few more elaborations on the characteristics. It must have a formal tone and style. Example, one I am reading out, the rest is there on the slide. Nature in romantic poetry is a fluid trope. You see, there is no emotional flourish over here. It's direct, succinct, to the point. Objective argument. Example, Eliot's assessment of the Romantics transits from the polemical to relatively guarded one because the Georgian context demanded enthusiasm of a rebel, which became tempered with the change of the cultural scene in the 1930s. Do not worry if you do not relate to the topic that is being written about. That's not your concern. What you have to understand is how it is written. Objective argument. Standing at a distance, looking at the whole thing without getting emotionally involved. That's the way this example has been done. Talking about the poet T.S. Eliot's view of the Romantics, but neither taking the side of T.S. Eliot nor taking the side of the Romantics. That is what you should address. Use of resources. I told you before, you cannot write academically unless you have researched the issue on which you are writing, right? So, reference work is very, very important. The use of the resources may vary with the nature of content. Both humanities and science-based academic writing to be consolidated with cross-references, citations. Mathematical and social sciences may refer to cite data. Free of errors. As students, you know, the less errors of any kind you make, grammatical or plagiaristic. Now, grammatical you understand. You cannot write non-grammatical language, whichever language it might be. And plagiarism, if you have not heard of this term, possibly, plagiarism is when you are taking a reference and not acknowledging it. That is a serious, illegal act in academic writing. Creative writing will never bother about that. Okay? And you have lots of plagiarism checker tools. If you're not sure, once your article is done, you apply a plagiarism checker tool through the internet and they will tell you how much is your percentage of error, right? Citation is an important thing, and it is also the avoiding of plagiarism. At the end of your article, I'll show you the last slides, it has got those visuals, that you have to tell exactly from where you are quoting. Here is the order: surname of your author, name, title of the book in italics, title of the journal in italics. For journal citation, volume, number and year. For book and journal, publishing details, edition for the book, and place and year. For online publications, additionally web address to be provided. This citation order you may look up in the MLS style sheet or the APA manuals, okay, available on the internet. A little puzzle is here for you. You can match the puzzles. I have already matched them for you. I'll just give one. Step, topic, gather, organize, paragraph, essay, proofread, edit is one side of the matchmaking. The other, what is meant by each of the term. Step, you will see a grey little diamond, and the similar grey diamond is matched with number 3, one thing in a series of things you do. Topic, the red diamond. Subject, what piece of writing is about. Gather, the red diamond, to find and collect together. Organize, the yellow diamond, to arrange in a clear, logical way. Paragraph, a little pinkish diamond, a group of related sentences. Essay, the green diamond, a short piece of writing, at least 3 paragraphs long. Proofread, the lighter grey, which tells you to check piece of writing for errors, and edit, to find and collect together. If you go through this puzzle on your own and you jumble up these diamonds, in 2 or 3 seconds when you match the diamonds, the whole structure of academic writing will become clear to you, and it's a nice little game also that you can play for yourself. Here we have the visuals. You will see this is how you have a title, you have the name of the author. It happens to be an article that I have published, so it's published. Then you have an abstract, which is a kind of a synopsis of what, and that's very important, because first you have to, in your journal or any publication book, first they ask for the synopsis, right? That topic we will touch in a lesson separately, but here is an example of the abstract, which is the synopsis of the main academic writing paper. Then you have, of course I haven't been able to give you the full visual, but you can understand. Then the introduction, then you have the actual development, and lastly conclusion or denomination. So this is how the structure is made, but the last part is important. Here you have notes and references. This is what I was talking. If you go back to the slide here, citation order. In fact, this is the citation order that I have a visual for you. How exactly you will mention the references. Thank you, and we hope that the lesson has been fruitful to you.